The year was 1940. Europe was at war, and the German blitzkrieg was spreading fast. In the quiet coastal town of Dunkirk, France, a desperate evacuation was unfolding. Nearly 400,000 Allied soldiers were trapped by advancing German forces with their backs to the sea. What happened next would be remembered not as a defeat, but as a miracle. In May 1940, German forces launched a rapid and devastating invasion of Western Europe. Belgium, the Netherlands, and France fell into chaos. British and French armies pushed east were suddenly surrounded as the German army sliced through the Ardennes, a forest thought to be impassable. The Allies were now trapped in a shrinking pocket, hemmed in by tanks, artillery, and advancing troops. By late May, the British Expeditionary Force and parts of the French army were pushed to the northern coast of France. At Dunkirk, they faced the sea with nowhere left to run. The Germans had air superiority and artillery positioned to strike. The beaches were open and exposed. It seemed like annihilation was inevitable. But something strange happened. The Germans paused.
On May 24, 1940, Adolf Hitler made a puzzling decision. He ordered his advancing panzer divisions to halt just miles from Dunkirk. Some say he feared a trap, others suggest he wanted the Luftwaffe to finish the job. Whatever the reason, this pause gave the Allies a narrow window, one they would use to attempt the impossible, an evacuation under fire. On May 26th, Operation Dynamo was launched. British naval officers planned a daring rescue across the English Channel. The Royal Navy mobilized destroyers, minesweepers, and anything that could float. The goal, to evacuate as many troops as possible from the beaches of Dunkirk. But they faced constant German bombing and a shrinking timeline. Soldiers waited in long lines stretching for miles. With no cover from the air, they stood in shallow water, watching the horizon for ships. Some prayed. Others wrote letters they might never send. Stukas screamed overhead, dropping bombs with terrifying precision. The beach became both sanctuary and trap. Each hour was a gamble. As naval vessels struggled to reach the beach, a call went out to civilians. Hundreds of small boats, fishing vessels, ferries, yachts answered. Skippers and volunteers braved the journey across mine-filled waters and Luftwaffe raids. These little ships of Dunkirk became legends, rescuing soldiers from the shallows where large ships could not go. The English Channel turned into a war zone. Rescue ships came under fire from German aircraft and submarines. Smoke trailed in the sky. Many vessels were sunk. Yet the boats kept coming, and the men kept boarding. Amidst the terror, there was order. Soldiers formed lines. Officers maintained discipline. Hope returned, inch by inch. Amid the chaos, acts of courage stood out. Medics treated the wounded under relentless bombardment. Pilots of the Royal Air Force flew overhead, battling the Luftwaffe to protect the men below. Some soldiers gave up their spots on rescue boats so others could live. Dunkirk was not just a retreat, it became a story of valor. While British troops boarded boats, French forces stayed behind. They fought fiercely to hold the perimeter, delaying the German advance. Many would be captured or killed, but their sacrifice allowed thousands of others to escape. History often forgets their role, but at Dunkirk, the French held the door open to freedom. On the ground, soldiers cursed the sky, wondering where the Royal Air Force had gone. What they couldn't see was the deadly aerial war unfolding above the clouds. RAF pilots were intercepting German bombers before they reached the beaches. Though many doubted them, the RAF was risking everything to shield the evacuation. Back in Britain, Prime Minister Winston Churchill faced impossible odds. He knew the fall of France was near, yet he refused to surrender hope. Churchill ordered every effort be made to rescue the men at Dunkirk. He understood that their survival was not only military, it was psychological. Britain needed a symbol of resilience. What began as a desperate attempt to rescue a few thousand men soon grew into something far greater. By the third day of evacuation, over 100,000 troops had been saved. The beaches, once filled with fear, now echoed with determination. Every soldier rescued was a victory against despair. As the days passed, the Germans resumed their attack. The pause was over. Dunkirk came under increasing pressure. Still, the evacuation continued, troops loaded by night, ships dodged bombs by day. The English Channel, unpredictable and rough, became a lifeline, and against all odds, it held. By June skint, the British had evacuated nearly all their forces, but thousands of French troops remained. The final days of the operation were chaotic. Shells fell, smoke choked the shore. Yet still, men boarded boats. Dunkirk was burning, but the mission wasn't over. The French would be the last to leave. On June 4th, Operation Dynamo officially ended. In just 9 days, over 338,000 Allied soldiers had been evacuated. That number was unimaginable when the operation began. Though Britain lost equipment, vehicles, and supplies, it had saved its army. The miracle of Dunkirk was complete, and history had been rewritten. In Britain, the mood was mixed. Relief was tempered by the knowledge that war was far from over. Yet the spirit of Dunkirk became a rallying cry. "We shall fight on the beaches," Churchill declared. The rescue was not a victory in battle, but it was a triumph of will. Dunkirk was not without cost. Thousands were captured. Thousands more died. The beaches were littered with weapons, tanks, and the remains of war. Yet, the evacuation bought time. Time to rebuild. Time to prepare. It was not an end, but a beginning, forged in fire and sea. Over the years, Dunkirk became more than a military operation. It became a legend, a story of ordinary people doing the extraordinary, of boats built for fishing rescuing soldiers, of courage when all seemed lost. Its legacy is not in strategy but in spirit, a quiet defiance against defeat. In the end, Dunkirk was not a story of guns or glory. It was a story of survival, of endurance, of light in the darkest hour. Soldiers lived to fight another day. A nation found hope in retreat. And history recorded not just what was lost, but what was saved. The real soul of Dunkirk was found not only in soldiers, but in civilians. Ordinary people, answering an extraordinary call, risked everything to cross enemy waters. They had no training, no armor, just courage and duty. Their quiet bravery lit a path through chaos and gave a nation something to believe in. Many soldiers, once safely across the channel, were greeted by silence. There were no cheers, no parades, only tea, blankets, and rest. They were exhausted, haunted by the faces left behind. Yet in their weary eyes was a flicker of pride. They had survived. They were not broken. Historians still debate Hitler's halt order. Could Germany have crushed the Allies completely? Perhaps. But that pause gave Britain its army back, and with it, the strength to stand. Hitler believed Britain would now sue for peace. He was wrong. Dunkirk had hardened British resolve. In the years to come, the Dunkirk spirit would enter the British vocabulary. It meant perseverance in the face of disaster, unity in the face of fear. It became more than a slogan. It became a national identity, a reminder that hope could outlast horror. Among the chaos were thousands of untold stories, of a soldier sharing his last biscuit, of a captain steering his fishing boat through gunfire, of a boy seeing his father return home, shaken but alive. These small acts stitched together a great tapestry of resilience. As Britain evacuated, France continued to fight, but within weeks, Paris would fall. The shadow of occupation would last years. Yet even in darkness, the seeds of resistance took root. Dunkirk had not saved France, but it had given the Allies a second chance. On June 4, 1940, Winston Churchill addressed Parliament with the words that would echo through time. "We shall go on to the end. We shall never surrender." It was not a speech of victory, but of resolve. Dunkirk had shown retreat could carry dignity and even power. Today, the sands of Dunkirk are calm. Tourists walk where soldiers once stood. Rusted wreckage lies buried beneath the waves. But the spirit of that moment, of men, ships, and sacrifice, remains. Not just in museums or books, but in the enduring memory of human courage. The Battle of Dunkirk was not won with guns or generals. It was won with determination, faith, and unity. In the silence of retreat, the Allies found strength. In the face of despair, they chose hope. And from that fragile shoreline, history turned toward freedom. Thank you for joining us on this journey through history. This has been another episode of Sleepy AI History. We hope you found it peaceful, thoughtful, and worth dreaming about. If you enjoyed this story, please consider liking the video and subscribing for more calm, narrated history. Until next time, rest well and let the past whisper you to sleep.